All right, so today I am joined by Telly Leung, the infamous Broadway star. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So tell me, how excited are you to perform your new show, Back to Birdland, at Birdland Jazz
Oh
Club?
my gosh, I'm so excited to be back there. I haven't been back there since 2018 with a solo show.
Really?
I love all the rooms in New York City. I mean, there's some great clubs, but I have a really special place in my heart for Birdland. Um, and it's because I think with Birdland, I is really a space that celebrates not just Broadway people, but it celebrates some of the best musicians,
Hmm.
and musicianship. And when I get together with my musicians that I've been with for gosh over 2 decades now, the people that are going to be in my trio with me, Gary Adler on
Hmm.
keys, Marianne McSweeney on bass, Joel Horashevsky on drums. I mean, they've been playing gigs with me for forever. And
Yeah.
so to get to go back to Birdland with them and to get to play a gig with them and play through the arrangements that we've all created together. We've made several albums together, and those albums have sort of been labors of love between me and these amazing musicians. And so to get to be back at Birdland, it's my first real like New York cabaret gig since we came back from the pandemic.
Really?
So
Okay.
for me, it's like I was like, where do I want to come back and do a show, a solo show in
Mhm.
New York? And I really wanted to do it with Birdland because I realized during that time how much I missed making music with other people and being in a
Yeah.
room with other musicians.
Mhm.
And to me, that's Birdland to me for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
And of course, like the wonderful people at Birdland have always made it like a wonderful home for me, and they always have a space for me. So I really want to thank Gianni and Jim Caruso over there for being so great. Whenever I go, hey guys, I really want to do a show, they welcome me with open arms.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. So this could be very special for you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and fun. I
Yeah.
mean, it's that's part of it too, is that we often get, all of us, me included, me as an actor and as a director, I get hired to do so many other projects, and my musicians, they're some of the best in New York City, so they get hired out all the time. So honestly, it was like an excuse to like put on a show so that we could all hang out and make music together.
And there's nothing better than that, really, honestly.
Yeah.
So, in addition to singing some original Broadway songs, some stuff from your recorded albums, what else can audiences expect?
Um, we are going to do a number that I'm going to pay tribute to the late great Cheetah Rivera.
Okay.
My
Nice.
music director Gary Adler was Cheetah's pianist for a long time. I got to work with Cheetah a couple times, and I've always just, as a Broadway person myself, she is sort of the gold standard, I think, for what we consider to be a Broadway class act, and it's such a huge loss, for our community.
Yeah.
She often would play Birdland,
Oh, really? I didn't
actually.
know
So,
that.
so that absolutely, there were times where, of course, Cheetah Rivera would like get offers to play big fancy rooms and all of that, but she too had this real love for Birdland, and she would do
Mhm.
long runs at Birdland.
Nice.
I couldn't believe it. It was like, oh my gosh, like right on 44th Street between 8th and Ninth, you can go see Cheetah Rivera. She's playing the big room at Birdland. So I think there's a part of me that's the other reason why I love Birdland is seeing somebody like her completely rock out that room was very inspiring for me.
Mhm.
And so so we're going to do a little tribute to her as well, and also celebrate some of the music that we created in that space together.
Mhm.
My very first show at Birdland was in 2012,
Okay.
and my drummer at the time, and also the producer of so many of my records, Michael Kreuter, who played drums with me on that particular gig, and he isn't able to make it on Monday night, but he challenged me as a Broadway artist
Mm.
to think about working in cabaret differently, and
Okay.
to think about it as a musician. So instead of sort of, with a lot of cabaret acts, often we'll put a show together with a music director, we'll have a through line, and then we'll bring in the other musicians sort of at the last minute to do a band rehearsal, and then we'll do the
Mhm.
show. Michael said, it'd be really great if we just got together and rehearsed once in a while and like messed around with arrangements, took songs that we all loved and all came up with ideas, all four of us, instead of just bringing in the musicians at the last minute, have them be part of that creative conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would just get together at Michiko Studios or something, and we would just jam or play with a song. And
Mhm.
and that's how I've always now loved working with musicians as we put together arrangements. So Birdland will be a lot of that. It'll be songs that you know and love,
Mhm.
but they'll be sort of flipped on its head
Okay.
musically. And I can't wait to revisit some of those fun charts that we've all come up with in those rehearsals, and they're super fun to do. So I was like, and and I have to be honest, like it's a different way of working with musicians. And Michael Kreuter was so right. He was like, it's different than just bringing the musicians in at the last minute. You have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
You've been in creative sessions with them. You've brought a band together for rehearsal, even though there wasn't a gig coming. You just rehearsed as a band,
Hmm.
and that sort of comfort and that sort of collaboration and that sort of partnership, which I've had now with these musicians for over 20 years,
Hmm.
that reads on stage.
Yeah.
That sort of like just love of making music together, that an audience will find extremely entertaining and extremely moving. They won't be able to put their finger on it, but they'll just be able to feel
Feel it.
that level of trust and
Yeah.
friendship between musicians that have worked together for so long.
Mhm.
I don't think I have collaborations that have been that long in my life in the theater or in television or anything like that. But when it comes to these musicians, like they are ride or dies,
Yeah.
So,
Up on.
so,
Yeah.
and to get to like go, hey guys, what do we feel like playing Monday night? Like, what do we love to do? And what do we want to share with our audience? Like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So, throughout your entertainment career, you've been a Broadway and television performer, a recording artist, producer, director, theater arts teacher, coach. Has this always been your passion?
Uh, I think I've always wanted to be in this community.
Hmm.
I think that, I grew up in New York City, and I grew up an only child, only son of very traditional Chinese parents, immigrant parents who had very high aspirations of me to like go to Harvard,
Yeah.
be the first in my family to go to college, be a doctor, like marry a nice Chinese girl and give them lots of Chinese grandbabies. And like, I didn't do any of the above. I chose such a radical life. Um, and,
Nothing wrong with
um, and I think that like, is it sometimes scary to
that.
be an artist? Is it sometimes scary to not know where your next gig is coming from?
Yeah.
Yes. But what's the trade? The trade-off is something I can't really put a monetary or real world value on. It is something that for example, these friendships and these collaborations I've had with these musicians, like I can't put a value on that. Like, sure, could I have done something else with my life that maybe would have brought me more money and stability and nicer clothes and a bigger house, maybe. But I wouldn't have traded it for all the other stuff,
Yeah.
which is all the wonderful sort of memories and collaborations and art, frankly, that we've made together that I know has some sort of reverberating effect on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I think I've always wanted to be a part of that community of artists, of people that looked at the world differently, that challenged the rest of society to look at the world differently, whether that's through theater or television or music,
Mhm.
whatever that is. And I like that that's my job.
Yeah.
You know, I think it
Mhm.
makes us all. Certainly makes me better. Every musician and every artist I've come across that's made me think about something differently, whether it's a role or a song or a play or whatever that is,
Yeah.
it's always made me better. And I think that that's, I don't know, that's the more I think about why I do this, especially in such a tempestuous climate for show business, like I go, right, I think it's because this microcosm of collaboration and creation that I get from working with musicians and working with theater artists, this is sort of the vision of what I want the world to be on
Mhm.
the macro level. And I think what theater artists do really well is they go, hey guys, if we like put our brains together and put our hearts together and put our artistry and talents together, we can make something where there never was anything.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be a great, if we could all do that as a society, if society on the whole could sort of take a page from what we artists do every day, which is we talk and we listen and we negotiate and we compromise in order to make something happen. I think the world would be a better place. So
Definitely. I
that's
agree.
why I do it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Yes. And then, I mean, you've started as Aladdin on Broadway. You performed as Angel in Rent. You originated the role of Bach in the Chicago company of Wicked. Is there a particular moment within your career that stands out above the rest as something you'll never forget?
Yeah, it's I always say this, but it's the it's being in Rent, and I
Yeah.
think it's because I was 16 years old when the original cast of Rent was on Broadway. I was a rent head. It's the show that made me obsessed with musical theater. I mean, I liked musical theater, but then it was really Rent that made me go, like, I could maybe do this one day,
Yeah.
because I saw myself on that stage. And that was 1996. And then in 2006, I joined the final company on Broadway, and I was there till the very end at the Nederlander Theater. So I think, if Rent was still running, I'd still be doing it today. I've always said that. And so yeah, I think that's why. I think it just has a special place in my heart. And now it's great to watch, shows like I saw Wicked do that for a generation of people, right? Like
Mhm.
there were people that Wicked was their first Broadway show, or Wicked was the show that made them obsessed with theater, and now they're like in it. Now they're like in
Yes.
the cast of Wicked because the show is actually has been around long enough for that to happen, And the same thing with Hamilton now. I am
Yeah.
sure 20 years from now, when we talk about we talk to theater artists, and they're my age, and you go, what made you want to do theater? And they would say Hamilton, and now guess what? I'm in it. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
think that's a pretty awesome phenomenon that
Yes,
happens.
for sure, definitely. And you recently returned from Taiwan, where you starred in the musical version of Ang Lee's film, The Wedding Banquet. What was that
Yeah.
experience like?
Um, in the 22 years that I've been a performer, professional performer, it is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
Um, I was actually directing a show at the University of Michigan. I was directing a little night music for the theater department there. So I showed up to rehearsals 2 weeks late to Taiwan. Uh, um, and I'm also the lead of the show, where I barely leave the stage. But the hardest part was that 50% of my dialogue and my lyrics were in Mandarin Chinese,
Wow.
which is not the dialect of Chinese I speak. I speak Cantonese at
Yep.
home, and they are radically different.
Mhm.
For example, if I were to say, "What are you saying?" in Cantonese, it would be "你講乜嘢啊?" But if I said it in Mandarin, it would be "你说什么?"
Mhm.
which is like totally different. It's just different, similar but different.
Yeah.
So I learned the role phonetically, like an opera, and then eventually I had a wonderful assistant, an associate director there that is here, and he's a theater teacher here in the States, but he was our associate director over there in Taiwan, and that's where he's natively from. His name is Leo Chang, and he would get on Zoom with me when I was directing the show in Michigan twice a week. We would have Zoom sessions where he would teach me the Mandarin. He would teach me all the correct intonations. Then we would talk about intention of the line and how I would express that in
Okay.
believably in a Mandarin dialect where I didn't sound like I, just stepped off Duolingo. And and without him, I would have not been able to do the show.
Yeah.
By the time I got to Taiwan, I literally got off a plane at 6 a.m. and I was in rehearsal by 9 a.m. for a
Wow.
full day of them putting me into the show, going, they were like, "Hey, Telly, we've been rehearsing a show for 2 weeks without you. This is what we learned. We're going to throw you in real fast." Our amazing director, Gordon Greenberg, he got there a week late because he was directing Heart of Rock and Roll on Broadway. He
Mhm.
said to me, and we've both worked at the Muni, which is a wonderful theater, outdoor theater in St. Louis. It's
That's where I'm from.
America's largest outdoor theater. Oh,
Yeah, I live in
brilliant! Yeah,
St. Louis.
you
Yeah.
meet me at the
Meet
Muni
me at
of
the
Forest
Munich.
Park. You
Yes.
know it
Yep.
well. That's
Mhm.
right. So that's where I cut my teeth. I've done so many shows at the Muni. I've stopped counting. It's like 13, 14, 15 shows or something.
Community is just such
And
an amazing theatrical experience.
yeah, it's theater boot camp. And so Gordon was like, "I know this show is half in a language you don't speak, but just pretend like this is a Muni show. You have 10 days till tech, and you're
Okay.
the lead of the show. So like put yourself in Muni mode." And I
Mhm.
did. I put myself in Muni mode, and we figured it out. And it was, but I will say it is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. And there were definitely moments where I said to myself, "Did I bite off more than I can chew?"
Mhm.
Or like, "This is it. This is like I will be so embarrassingly bad in this that this will be the last time anybody hires me in anything." But somehow it was sort of a great experience for me at my age. I'm 44. I don't hide around my age. But like at 44, I don't know. Like it was also such a victorious sort of empowering feeling to like then actually get the role under my belt, do it, and have people and do it convincingly and do it well. My goal was to go. Okay, my goal. I know I'll never sound natively Taiwanese, but I want to be. I want to not stop the show. I want to know, and I want to be able to give my scene partners who are native Taiwanese actors what they need, and I want to be able to take the audience on the emotional journey that my character does, and
Mhm.
have them not think about the fact that they're not hearing a native Taiwanese speaker.
Yeah.
And I felt like I did that to the best of my ability. And after that, I was like, you know what? Like at 44, I can still do hard things. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like I can still, you know what I mean? Like it was, I don't know, you get to a certain place in your career where you sort of go, oh gosh, that's really hard. Do I really want to go in for that? Do I really want to do that? This was definitely the hardest thing. And I was just, I was proud of myself for being able to rise to it, you
Yeah.
know?
Conquered the change.
And rise to something that I don't even think I thought possible in myself. I mean, there were definitely times when I landed in Taiwan, I was jet lagged, staring at a script in a language I don't speak, going, I can't do this. And then at the end of 2 weeks to be able to go, okay, I did it. Like I survived. I'm still alive. I did it. I'm still here. I still have all my limbs. Okay, we're here.
You're here. You're there. It's awesome. Well, what is the ultimate dream role for you? Do you have one?
That's such a people ask me that question all the time. I
I
grew
feel
up
like
with
it's a
80s and
common it's
90s
a common
kids,
question among like
and it's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard to answer that question. I would say like I still have dreams of playing the Phantom of the Opera, and I think it's because I was an 80s 90s theater kid and I was
okay.
obsessed with the Phantom of the Opera. And it's my mom loves the Phantom of the Opera, and I know that like if I were to ever do that show, she would be so proud. She would think, "Tell he's made it," because he's playing. Who cares if he's Aladdin and he gets the last bow on Broadway, for 2 years, like he's playing the Phantom,
Yeah.
and then of course that show closed, so I felt like maybe that door has closed on me a little bit. But I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
hopefully they start doing that show regionally, and maybe I'll go off. Maybe I'll do it at the Muni or something, or
That'd
you
be
know what I mean,
awesome.
like
Yeah.
yeah, or and I hear that show might be making a comeback anyway. So
Okay, okay, good to know. Because I would love to see that on Broadway or in like
yeah,
I've seen it at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. That's the only place where I've seen it at. But yeah, I would love to any chance to see a fan. I'm going to take it.
yeah. The Fox in St. Louis is gigantic. That chandelier must look teeny tiny
Oh
when you're
yes,
there.
yes, yes. Love the Fox. St. Louis has such a great theater scene. They really do with
Oh
the
yeah,
Fox and the Muni and so many other community theaters. Yeah, St. Louis
stages. I've
stages.
seen. I
Yeah,
would. I would see shows at stages all the time. Yeah.
nice, nice. Well, Telly, another project you recently worked on was PS Classic's world premiere album of Unheard Melodies by the underrecognized composer Gerald Ginsburg. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
Gerald Ginsburg.
Tell us about
I
that.
knew I knew nothing about Gerald Ginsburg, but the amazing folks at PS Classics, Tommy Krasker, is the person that really discovered all of these great Ginsburg songs. It was like, here's this dude. He's passed away, and his catalog of music has really been unheard, undiscovered. But there are some really great gems in here. And he started compiling all this music, and he said, you know what? Tommy was like, over the years at PS Classics, he's worked with so many phenomenal
Mhm.
singers. He was like, I would just love to gather some of my friends and like have a record of this music, with Richard Carsey conducting a gorgeous orchestra of some of Broadway's finest musicians coming together. And I had a blast, and I have to thank Tommy really for thinking of me, first of all, and asking me to be a part of this project. There are some phenomenal voices. I mean, I fangirl when I listen to that album, because it's like, oh gosh, like Victoria Clark and Kelly O'Hara, and I mean, like some of these voices, and Jason Daniely, and you're like, gosh, like I'm on this album with those people. Like it's mind blowing to me, that Tommy would include me in that very prestigious group, and I feel really honored to be a part of it, and also thrilled for Ginsburg. I know he's no longer with us, but I wonder what he would think. I'm sure he's you know up in heaven, and like so thrilled that posthumously his tunes have survived, and
Yeah,
these voices are singing them. It's like
that's quite an
awesome.
honor. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that collection of voices is pretty stellar.
Yes, yes. Now that is available to stream right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's available to stream.
Okay, perfect.
And I thought Tommy and Phil and all the folks at PS Classics did a really beautiful job on it.
Okay, okay, awesome, fantastic. Well, Telly, how can one stay up to date with you the best?
Oh, I'm at tellyleung.com. I'm on Instagram at Telly Leung. That's where you'll sort of find everything that I'm up to. I really am. I'm so excited for folks to come see a show in New York City and spend a Monday with me. It's gonna be so fun. We're just gonna have a blast.
Sure, definitely. Well, then before we wrap up, are there any other upcoming projects or anything else you would like to mention or plug at this time?
Um, you're a national publication, right? Like you is this
Yeah,
is this
instant
yeah.
using.
Uh,
Yeah.
I play Rehoboth I always do a gig at Rehoboth Beach on July 15th at the Blue
Okay.
Moon. Every year I go to the Blue Moon at Rehoboth, which is a lovely LGBTQ owned venue. I've known the owners for over 15 years.
Nice.
And Gary and I are going to go there. Whenever I go with Gary, Gary always brings his partner JJ Johnson, who's a great violist, and we always do a piano viola show there. So
Nice.
that's on the 15th. Right before we do Birdland, so we might even test out some fun things we're playing with
Okay.
Gary and I at Rehoboth on the 15th, and then we play Birdland on the 17th. Um, and um, and that's all I can really talk about at the moment. There are things, but I can't divulge them quite yet until the ink is dry. So,
Okay,
but
so stay tuned.
yeah,
Right. Fantastic.